All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we want to welcome you to focus on Liberia. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening to those of you in the evening hours. Of course, this is Focus on Liberia. Today is Monday, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast here. This is a very special edition of the Hour of Politics with me, Ansony, Sieh, your host. Do us that usual favor, hit that share button quickly. We are about to do what we always try to do, to bring you analysis of the unfolding issues in the homeland. In today's edition of this program, we will be looking at recalibration. There has been a lot of calls by many political actors and players and pundits, surrogates, apologists, you name it. Everybody in agreement on this one, that the CDC should recalibrate. And so I'm asking the question, will recalibration save the CDC? What do you think? Well, I know you want to know what I think. And this is what I'm going to be doing here in this edition of this program here I focus on Liberia. Thank you, and bear with us here as we go into this very, very juicy topic. Will the CDC survive? Can the CDC recalibrate, gain a momentum, gain a political standing, and be able to march forward and maybe along the way pull a victory as it has always done in the past? Does the CDC have it in its bones, in its DNA, to recalibrate, to do what it has been able to do in the past? All the CDC has lost it completely. Folks, this is where you want to be. This is the Hour of Politics. I am your guy. My name is Ansony Sieh, and I don't want to waste your time. We will go into this very, very special edition of our program. But before we get started, we want to take this time to wish you all Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And this is Focus on Liberia, wishing you uh, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And we want to say thank you for always following what we do here. I focus on Liberia. So let's get to it. Folks, the CDC, of course, is in a difficult situation. And this is something even seditionists, including their leaders, have all agreed upon. But as a political institution, and for the main fact that the CDC controls the governance structure of our country, the CDC must do everything it can to find a bearings, or else we will have yet another failed state on our hands. And this is the last thing that we want after we have had it all. And so the CDC, whether or not you disagree with the CDC, it is the CDC responsibility. The CDC represents the government of the day. So it must go to work and do everything it can to salvage whatever has been damaged and try to lead our country. But politically speaking, has the damage been done? So much so that the CDC may not be able to survive. Well, experts in politics will tell you this is not the first time this has happened. It has happened to many politicians and many political institutions. Those institutions went back to the drawing board. They recalibrated. They were able to reimagine their vision, their strategies, and they came back and they were able to pull political victory. Is that possible with the CDC? Well, if you want to know my answer, here is my answer with this analysis I am about to get to you. And so let's get started. And we can get started, first of all, without telling you what the CDC is and has been. And I'm not going to bore you with so much history here because I have so much meat in this analysis that I am only going to throw at you so that you can just enjoy yourself. And so, folks, we all got to know the CDC, one of Liberia's most popular grassroots political movement ever in its history in terms of numerical strength. Oh, yes, you can't win the argument. The CDC was able to win the minds and the hearts of so many Liberians across the political spectrum. People from all ages came to the CDC. Even those who had some reservation were able to maintain some level of sympathy. They were able to maintain some level of agreement with the CDC. But the crumbs of it all, we also many young people coming to the CDC, to the point when the CDC was launched and participated in the first elections of 2005, people printed their own t-shirts. That is how powerful CDC as an institution was at a time when it first surfaced in the political terrain of Liberia. Every young man, or most young people, wanted to be part of the CDC, to the extent that even some progressive, like Merton Tiaje, went on the side of the CDC. Today, you can talk about somebody like Wilson Tapper. Many progressive even went to the CDC. The young people went to the CDC in droves. Ordinary people. Why did that happen? Because the CDC leader, George Manawia, now president of the Republic of Liberia, his life story is a story that almost every Liberian, especially those who are from the dungeon of the economic, the dungeon of poverty in our country, we all identify, most people identify with his story. A young man coming off from very poor parents, he didn't have it, and he will collect bottles and sell bottles. He will go on to start playing football in the yard. That football will take him to community fee, from community fee to some national fee. He start playing for the national team. And this guy who could not eat, who will eat from with coconut and all that, will go on to become a star, not only in Liberia, not only in Africa, not only in Europe, but into the entire world. He will go on to be somebody representing the world at the level of the United Nations by becoming goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. George Weah conquered the world. I don't want to bore you about the trophies that he had captured. This is a man who came from a humble beginning that was clouded and engulfed by poverty, as many of us have experienced. And so for him to have had that success, very remarkable and captivating and mind-blowing, everybody identified with him. The George Weah story was everybody's story, especially those who were able to see the word poverty. Some people have just heard about it. They have not seen it. They have not experienced it. But many Liberians have experienced it. And so because of that, seeing George Weah in the ring of politics, and there have been this argument that our educated class, has failed Liberia. Many Liberians were looking for an alternative somewhere. And at the time, given that their frustration was at the peak, George Weah represented that alternative. So the question of whether he was qualified, nobody wanted to listen to that. So fast forward, George Weah will go on to be elected as senator. George Weah will go on to be elected as president, and today he is president. And throughout, Joshua and his political party sojourn in the political arena of Liberia. Every time Joshua raised the hand of anybody, whether that person was a non-political entity in any community, that person will go on to win that election. And so there are many today who have served at the level of the national legislature and also in this government who are ministers, deputy ministers, and minister propers because of the name Georgia and because of the institution CDC. So what I'm saying is that CDC became a symbol of grassroots movement that many people have identified with because it has carried their pains, their wishes, and aspirations. For them, CDC was the change that they have ever wanted. So what happened? There is the CDC today will go ahead and buy barriers in thousands, print t-shirts in thousands, give it to its supporters, somehow coerce them, entice them financially to show up at stadiums, at campaign rallies. And those very people will turn their back, take off the barrier, take off those t-shirts that were printed by the CDC. The CDC for whom they printed their own t-shirts. This time CDC, because it's Empower printed t-shirts for these people, you would think that these very people will be able to this time say, now we can vote for CDC. It is the opposite. What has happened? Something has gone wrong. Something terrible has happened. And so my next question is, if this CDC that was their political love child, if this George Weah of CDC, who was their political favorite in Liberia, someone so loved, will be receiving humiliating defeat in this manner and faction in less than 3 years into its administration, that the CDC will be receiving these kind of defeats, something happened. What has happened? And so this brings me back to our topic. Can recalibration save the CDC? Some people may argue no, recalibration would never and ever save the CDC. Some people are maintaining the hope that it may be, depending on the skills and the magnitude and the boldness and the seriousness that will be applied. It may be able to save the CDC. Well, in my analysis, you will get to know whether or not the CDC can be saved in whatsoever recalibration that it may be able to carry on. And the question also is, does the CDC have it in it to be able to recalibrate as others are suggesting? Or is it just a mere imagination? Is this another false hope that the CDC can recalibrate? Well, let's get to the meat of it. I'm tired of dancing around this subject. But let me remind you with the question, what happened? What went wrong? What did the CDC do wrong? What did the president do wrong? What did seditionists do wrong? And who did the CDC party wrong? Who did George Weah wrong? Who did sedition actually wrong? Well, you know the answer. I will say to you on this one, they wronged the Liberian people politically. They wronged the Liberian people politically and economically. They wronged the Liberian people in any kind of way. And that is the only reason for which they are being taught the harshest lesson in their lifetime. So, making progress here, let's talk about the things, specific things that happen for which the CDC is receiving this humiliating defeat in short time. The 2017 general and presidential election, there were a lot of hidden things that happened. CDC campaign and many lies were told about CDC's ability to govern. Many lies were told about President Weah's ability to lead. We were told that CDC was a party of brilliant young minds. And those brilliant young minds, diverse, representing all the political subdivisions of Liberia, all the ethnic groupings in Liberia, will be able to form a team that will be a better representation of the government. But we were wrong. Little did many people know that in the very CDC, there were chaos. There were disagreements. There were cliques in the CDC. Some people could not get along with others. And that issue was never resolved. And so they felt that they could be able to cover it come to election, win election, and some way, somehow, they will be able to unify and be able to lead. That was a colossal mistake. So when the CDC got elected, because the disagreements that were within the CDC, the division that was in the CDC, there was no general reconciliation put into place. Even after the CDC won, that division has gotten entrenched into the CDC. And so in no time, instead of the CDC putting together a team that will be able to represent or serve in its government, because the CDC had nurtured this clique system in a ranks and file throughout the time it was in opposition. The stronger clique that having to be those who were covered down of the president to charge of the national cake after they won. That was one of the serious mistakes. That was the genesis of the CDC problem that is surfacing today. Now, another thing that happened, as though the lies that were told about President Weah's ability and how unified the CDC was as a party in order to be able to govern and responsibly, as though those two were not enough, the CDC, President Weah, went and struck a deal with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, a woman who had led the country for 12 years, the woman whose government, we are aware, was embroiled with corruption of all forms. We are reminded of about 50 other reports that indicted officials of government. We are reminded about around 68 contractual agreements that were considered bogus, that did not meet the basic requirement in terms of agreements, thereby denying our people their just benefits. Many things happened. Ellen himself admits that corruption was a vampire and she couldn't fight anymore. I mean, I can go on naming all these things for you. Folks, the CDC, through Joshua, struck a deal with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf after the very CDC had demonized the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government for 12 years and promised Liberians that should they get the opportunity to be in government, they were going to order Ellen Johnson Sirleaf persecuted and hold her accountable on all the vices that went on in her government. The CDC struck a deal with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf during the election period. Joshua had to live by that deal. Joshua had to abide by the terms of the agreement. And that was that Ellen will be able to finance the CDC campaign, and that Joshua will become president, and Joshua will commit to protect Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and her sons, and Joshua will do everything to even not only Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government, and let all the people who were indicted in other reports to go scot-free. This is what happened, or these are the things that happened. And so, folks, here we are, 3 years later. These lies, these shady deals that were concocted behind back doors for CDC to come to power are now surfacing. And I don't want to remind you about the fact that CDC or sedition today are crying that there are former officials of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf that are in the government. Hey, it was part of the deal. You sign up for it. Your leaders agreed that they will protect Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Your leaders agreed that they will be able to maintain some officials of the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. This is how you got this power. You got this power because you struck a deal not for the Liberian people, but for your officials, for them to benefit. Are you surprised that they are not benefiting now and you're not benefiting anything? Are you surprised? No, you shouldn't be surprised, because when they struck the deal was for them to benefit and also for them to protect the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration. It was not about you. And so it's never going to be about you. And so your anger is justified. And so, fellow Liberians, that is why today, despite CDC campaigning massively using state resources, buying burial, buying t-shirts for seditions, and even giving some of those t-shirts to Liberians who have done seditions. They went into the election and they got the shock of their life. Let me progress here. What happened? How did everything just come down this way? It is because President Weah has set a bad example. And so the question is, will the CDC be able to survive politically? Should the CDC recalibrate? Does the CDC have it in the first place to recalibrate? So let's talk about President Weah, bad behavior, bad examples that he set. Upon coming to power in no time, President Weah embarked on building mansions. Very insensitive behavior on his part. It was like a slap in the faces of Liberians. Someone who from the very get-go of the CDC printed their own t-shirts in the sun and in the rain on empty stomach will walk miles to campaign and to support the CDC. When the CDC government came to power, instead of focusing on the Liberian people, President Weah decided to focus on himself. The 9th Street building was destroyed. His 9th Street building was destroyed. And not only that, we start seeing massive condominiums being built all over the place. Do you want me to tell you about Studio 14? Do you want me to tell you about all Jamaica resorts? President Weah has been on a building spree. And this is all that he has been on. As though that is not enough, according to Mamba Molu, the president was exchanging sex for jobs. In other words, he has been womanizing, and most of the women that President Weah has been able to appoint in the government were on the basis that he was able to get some form of sexual satisfaction from these women, and that's how some of them got into government. Don't ask me what I'm saying this. That's what the chairman of the CDC said, Mamba Molu. So that is another behavior that President Weah exhibited, exchanging jobs for sex. And that's why he did. Now, if you think that is not enough, Buema J. Buema, a strong seditious who was working at ELBC, who happened to be a gentleman who campaigned and did everything for the CDC. He accused President Weah of having an affair with his wife. And many other stories. Many of you have heard or listened to videos of young girls fighting over our president, going as far as, denigrating the president in public space. These are the behavior that the president has exhibited. The president did not even take the job serious. The Liberian people has blessed him with power. Instead of taking the job serious, the president is in the business of what? Releasing hate songs here and there. There's information that the president have not shown up to work for over 4 months. Maybe this is how he's been able to come up with 4 hate songs in just a period of 1 year. I can even say to you that President Weah has released more hate songs than he has delivered major speeches in this gone year, because this year is already gone. And so, folks, as though that is not enough, in the midst of death, in the midst of economic hardship, in the midst of teachers, nurses, and doctors, everybody protesting for pay, the president then sees zombie. He shows up to a little delegation program for a main market. What does he do? The president will be dancing zombie. And these are nothing short of insults and insensitivity to the plight of the Liberian people. This is what the president has done. And yet, his apologists, his surrogates, his partisans, many of whom who only care about Weah more and care about Liberia less, will tell all is well. How well is it that people are protesting to the extent that the president, in his own words, will threaten to replace nurses for asking for their just pay? Hello, fellow Liberians. Are you now aware of this? You know, folks, the president has shown zero interest in the presidency that he occupies. It has been completely all about himself. All the president has ever done was to make sure that he gets the largest budget or the largest share of the budget. And the president has been budgeting very less for young people in the country, many of whom brought him to power. That is what we have been saying. What went wrong? What happened? CDC also did not put a good team together. CDC left out almost 99, 80% of its qualified partisans who could be of more help to it. CDC left those people out, all because of a clear system that has been in the CDC that the CDC would not resolve up to this point. Many of you are aware that at some point there was this retreat that they had called for, that they wanted to recalibrate and unify. That was when the 2020 by-election that just ended, we were all talking about it. The CDC recognized that things were not right. There were a lot of disenchanted citizens, that were complaining about the trajectory the nation was, on their government. And so some people with senses said, look, we have to come together and unify the party. But at the end of the day, because this CDC seems not to have it, their leader seems not to have it, to recognize their party so that they can be able to forge ahead as a team and do better for our people, that that retreat turned out to be a fanfare. We saw them yet again in barrels, red, white, and blue, and they were at the ATS. And that's what they did. It was all sinking. It was all partying. Some people even did not show up. Many people left the US and went there. They came back disappointed. The CDC could not unify itself. These are the things that have been responsible for what the CDC is going through today. Folks, why are the damages done? How and by whom? I told you about President we are or doing that has led to his government to be struggling in this manner and form, for which Liberians are suffering. So fast forward, folks, there's so much damage that has been done. And we have to tell you what much damage has been done, because they are talking about recalibrating. We need to understand the magnitude of the damage that has been done so that we can be able to measure it with the skill of recalibration that is needed, how bold it needs to be, and again, whether or not the CDC will be able to do that in the first place. So talking about damages here, the CDC in no time terribly handled $16 billion. That is old story now. And today, we are talking about money shortage in the country. This is not the first time we've seen that. Sometime back, we had a huge shortage of Liberian dollars again. Now it has surfaced again, because from the get-go, this government could not be able to account for all of the currency in the country. The government could not account. The government could not put into place, sound financial management. As a result, the $16 billion story is yet another story that continues to haunt this government. I don't want to bore you about the $25 million. The $25 million came because they said there was SS Liberian dollars on the market, something that was causing, for increase of prices. Prices remain on the increase today. So the $25 million was decided upon. And how did the government manage it? According to the finance minister, they used unconventional means. They said they went into small communities and dealt with money exchangers to map our asset liquidity. They could not deal with the financial banks. The rate will not go down. Prices will not go down. That's what the $25 million was intended for. To remove excess Liberian data off the market. Maybe that will lead to the reduction in the US rate, that will subsequently lead to the reduction of prices. That did not happen because the job was not done properly. In the words of Samuel 12, they used unconventional means, a manner and form in which it has never been done before, and there was zero accountability. Some of that money was squandered. There was promises from the government they were going to investigate. Yes, there was an investigation. The report came out. They won't act on the report. They will send the report to another institution. They will not act on the report. That report is still lying at LACC. A guy called Wambodiki is sitting on it. The president who said he wanted that report will not ask for the report because they knew what they did to that money. And so, fellow Liberian, that is another story. Fast forward. Stimulus package came. Corona hit. They told Liberians to stay home so as to prevent the spread or minimize the spread of COVID-19. The government will go to where and say, oh, let's find money. Around $30 million was raised. And they told us that that $30 million was going to be used to provide rice for our people, not only rice, beans. They even went as far as telling our people they were going to give them free water and free chlorine. These are facts. Here we are. Many Liberians are yet to receive the rest. What happened to that money? We heard about an audit report that was being conducted by the Internal Audit Agency. Audit report that were in the possessions of people like Nyuswa. Audit report that people like Abba and Gifty and Fambutu, they all had knowledge to, for which today they are no more. Folks, these people were murdered because they have credible information as to what happened to the stimulus money and all other funds in the government. For your information, as we speak, these people, they kill us, are yet to be funded by our government. These are families that are hurting here. These are professionals that are working in your government because they're trying to do their job. That's the only crime they have committed. Then you should not have hired them in the auditing sector of the government. If you did not want them to audit, why did you hire them? You hired them to do a piece of job. They have done their job, and you don't want the report to come out, so you went after these people, and today they are noble. The government will claim it is not its doing. So if it is not your doing, why can't you find those who are responsible? It is your responsibility to investigate these kind of crimes. Those 4 people today die for free in our country. Nothing has come out of it. Those people were killed in a period of 8 days. As though that was not shocking, our president was dancing zombie around town. Our president was releasing songs around town. An election will come, and he and his party will think that the Liberian people don't have brains and that they will vote them. Thank God the Liberian people punished them. And so, after denying that things have been bad, after denying that the government is not doing well, after denying and defending all these lies, the CDC, some way, somehow, fell on its knees, as evident by the election results and the likes of Mangill and every major leader in CDC telling us they have to recalibrate. We have to recalibrate. And so, folks, what happened? What did the CDC do wrong? What are the damages that have been done by the political institution and aid leaders? The list is endless, and I will give it to you. Because many of you have asked for the meat before, I'm going to give you the meat. And so, folks, we heard from the then Minister of Information, Len Eugene Nambe, at some point telling us about D-hole, cover hole, and Samuel 12, being that this guy is a sweet talker, good with words, and that's all he's good at, who tell us borrow initiative. Do you know what they were talking about, folks? Our government went into donors' accounts without their authorization and stole the people money and used it for reasons the money were not intended. The 9 diplomatic heavyweights, including Great Britain, France, the US, they will all put together and write a damning letter shaming our government and demanding our government to put their money back, and that they have no knowledge, or they did not give any approval to our government for going into their accounts as central bank and taking their money and using it. They will disgrace our government like that. And a 12 will come and tell us that was borrow initiative. And a Eugene number will come and tell us that was the whole cover of a justification that it has been done before. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did it. Yes, I believe Nambe might have been telling the truth, because the last time I checked, he was in Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration too. But wait down, Nambe, we elected, or the Liberian people elected, a change government. A government that's supposed to represent change and depart from the old ways of doing business. And now you want to tell us because that we was wrong, was done by the person you criticize, and that is your justification for doing it? Folks, so much wrong, so much damage has been done. And as though that is not enough, 3 boys as we speak are still missing. The man who dispatched them is the owner of the Semose funeral parlor or funeral home. Our government is aware that this man was the one who sent those boys somewhere, and today those boys are missing. Our government is not even holding the guy responsible as suspect. Instead, our government is doing business with Semose, somebody who is running a funeral home. My understanding is that it was Semose who told Gifty and Abbott. My understanding is that I think even Mambutu. If this is true, I did not verify the information, but if this is true, this is the level of insensitivity that this government continue to display. Why wouldn't our people be this angry? Why? This is how you reward people for bringing you to power? Folks, so when citizens are talking about they're going to recalibrate, let's ask them again, do they really have it in them? They could not recalibrate before election. Even when they won the election, when they called for their retreat, they would not recalibrate going into the 2020 by-election. And they got a devastating defeat. Do you think this CDC that is facing political bruises to the point that even some of its members have resigned, some of them have been chased out of the country, some of them are speaking against it, when the government is facing the worst economic indicators ever in our country's history, inflation is in the roof, prices are skyrocketing, people cannot afford daily meals. Is this the government that is divided you think will be able to recalibrate? Does the president even understand what it means to recalibrate? Does he even understand the magnitude of the problem that he's sitting on? How many Liberians have called for the president to reshuffle? How many Liberians have to call for this president to fire some people so that he can save his government, for the government to give some bearings and serve our people? How many Liberians have to call before he can act? Does he even understand the danger that is at hand here? I don't believe it. If he did, he would not be releasing a song talking about Lion Man. He would not release a song talking about Woki Woki. He would not release a song talking about Happy Birthday. No. He would not be dancing zombie. He would be going to work. He would not be seeking a Jamaica resort. He would not. He would show up to work regularly. He would be able to speak to the Liberian people. He would be able to demand that people who have done wrong especially corruption, the killing of these auditors. He will demand that those people be found and be persecuted. If only he understood that. This is what the president will be doing. Instead, he is on a jolly, jolly mission. Folks, when you hear people say we are in this for a long haul, this is the textbook meaning of that phrase or of that statement. Prices are in the roof. People can't find money. People are dying. People are hungry. Samuel 12 said there's budget surplus and yet you can't pay people. The problems are overwhelming. And what is the government solution? Lies, lies, and lies. That is the government solution. Failed promises. You want me to give you some? Where is the Bali Island? It's no more. They excited our people, raised their expectation. There will be something called Bali Island. We saw the president and some of his team on the island in boots, riding a boat along with the first lady. And it will not materialize. Some of you remember the Arab investors that came? Have they returned? Folks, have you forgotten about the wheat factory that the first lady should have brought to create jobs for Liberians? Have you forgotten that the government on a propos plan are going to create about 1 million jobs? Have you been informed of how many jobs have been created so far? The damage is in the roof. To repair this damage, I don't think this CDC has it because it's divided, because it's confused. It is without a leader. It is without a vision. It is fighting within. CDC is depleted. It has no ideas. And because the finance minister, who should be the chief fiscal officer of the country, is out of ideas, he is telling us that we should turn the president of Liberia into a benevolent dictator. That's why people say when they are out of ideas. Folks, it is not pretty. They told you about Coastal Highway. And not only that, that during the construction of the Coastal Highway, there will be stadiums built into the counties along the coast. 7 stadiums, they said, is yet to commence. The last time we checked, Samuel 12 said it's a failure. They have to bribe the national legislature to ratify that Bucos agreement or that Bucos deal at a 5G speed. We're listening to the Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia when Liberians were asking questions whether or not those institutions they were trying to get those funds from were legitimate institutions. The Justice Minister, the man who should be able to represent our country on issue of fairness, on issue of the rule of law, who say if even the money will come from the devil, we will take it. This is the kind of mess we are in. If you turn to somebody in the justice sector, you're not going to get anything. You go to the legislature, you're not going to get anything. You go to the courts, you're not going to get anything. You go to the executive branch of government, you're not going to get anything substantial. The government will go and embarrass our country, and they say they are launching an airline, and they brought cake like little girls having a Christmas party under a tree. You are launching airline, and there's no aircraft on the airfield that people can see. They dress few Liberians in colorful clothes, and they brought an artificial aircraft or toy with a cake. And our leader sat there. And he had this imaginary belief that he was up to serious business. And people were clapping. And since that signing has taken place, we are yet to hear any other thing about this airline. The damage is severe. And the bruises that citizens are feeling, I don't know what's going to repair that. Folks, will CDC recalibrate and be able to make it? Let me share with you some more problems. Passport scandal or Bwesonga Gate. Have you forgotten about the passport scandal? How our passports was being criminalized, possibly sold to criminals and drug dealers? Have you forgotten that? Have you forgotten Nyomplu? Womplu? Have you forgotten about the African Union? Have Liberia, was suspended because we could not pay our bills? Have you forgotten that, folks? Have you forgotten about LRA? About $33 million between 2018 and 2019 missing? No accountability? Have you forgotten also about the COVID-19 audit report, where $48.6 million is unaccounted for? No one knows where the money is. Have you forgotten, folks? Have you forgotten the death of journalist Zeno Miller? Many of you have forgotten it already. Zeno Miller, during the National County meet, he was on the field. One of the police commanders flogged him on the field. He complained. He posted on Facebook that I was flogged. There were pictures of videos, pictures to the effect he got caught. The government would not go to his rescue. He experienced internal bleeding and the journalist died. The individual who did it, we never heard about him being persecuted or being held accountable. Zeno Miller is no more. That was our government dealing. I don't want to bore you about Mineral Squad. It was a 419 scheme anyway. It did not happen. We were told about 2,000 housing units were going to be built in West Point. Did that happen? We were told that they were going to establish an agricultural bank. Did that happen? No, it has not happened. Folks, we are in this for a long run. The damage is severe, and I don't know when we will ever get over this. Let me show you something. The noise that is going around now is that CDC will recalibrate, and some way, somehow, CDC will be able to regain its bearings. So let's look at the word calibrate. After I have given you enough meat of the problem, and let me remind you about one more that just came to my mind: the proper rice. Have you forgotten about the proper rice? Let me show you something. Let me show you the picture. Right here, there's a picture I'm showing you right now. Our government told us that it has started this proper rice program. The proper rice was cheap. My memory tells me I think it was either $10 or $15 they were selling. They 25 or kg rice. The government has made the impression, and in fact, the government has released conflicting information. The government said it was the one that was starting the program. Then at some point they said that no, it was a Liberian who was starting this program, and the government was trying to support this guy. So the picture you are looking in there, the gentleman with the sunglasses there in that khaki shirt who's showing his palm right in front of President Weah, our government have made us to believe that he is a Liberian, and he was the one who decided to start this proper rice, and the government was working along with him in order to create competition in the rice market to subsequently lead to a reduction in the price of rice. There is the gentleman. And they say he was a Liberian and he was a private citizen. Then they turn around again. We saw Josephine Davis, the Inspector General of the Republic of Liberia, was selling the rice in the streets of Monrovia. When was the last time you saw an official of government selling rice publicly for a businessman in Liberia? When was the last time you saw that? It's almost like somebody telling you, who is the businessman I can talk about here? Okay, or Senti Brothers. It's like saying that sometime back, maybe Lawrence Bropler was helping to sell Senti Brothers goods. It never happened. But CDC gave us the impression that this guy was a private businessman, but then we saw government official Josephine Davis, Inspector General in person, selling the rice, taking money from Liberians. And I mean, the government at some point said that it was their program, but then they brought this young man. Apparently, they talked to him. But then the other story there is that we were told by some people who did some investigation, this was rice that was given to the Liberian government, I think by China or Japan. One of those countries have given the rice to Liberia as full aid. Our government went and repackaged the rice or re-bagged this rice and decided to sell the rice and lied to us that it was this gentleman, who picture you saw earlier, that had started a business in Liberia and that the government of Liberia were working along with him. I believe the truth now is they told a lie. I want to believe that it was the rice that was given to Liberia that they had repackaged. And because they used the money, they're not able to sustain the program. Do you hear about proper rice anymore? No. These are the things our government has been doing over and over. So fast forward, let's define for you. They're talking about, oh, we're going to recalibrate. That's a big word. So let's break it down for you so you can understand, folks. Let's break it down for you. I'm going to make this thing simple and you're going to understand it better. So, as I'm showing on the screen there, the word recalibrate. Let's define it. Everybody calling for recalibration. Seditionists believe that they can recalibrate and they will be able to do better. So first of all, let's pull the word apart. Re is a prefix, all right? And now, so the key word, the root word there is calibrate. So let's look at the word calibrate. What does the word calibrate mean? And I have so many words. This time I try to define it by giving words that represent or that mean the same thing as what? Calibrate. And then we'll put a re there. The re meaning, like to do it again. So the word calibrate means to adjust. The word calibrate means to assess. The word calibrate means to check. The word calibrate means to determine, to evaluate, to align, to quantify, to rank, to regulate, to survey. Folks, there are so many words that could mean the word calibrate. So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's look at the word assess. Do you think, in your opinion, CDC as an institution is able to assess its own problem? Do you think the CDC is able to assess its own problem? Do you think so? Do you think the CDC is able to conduct a survey as to how much damage has been done on its watch? And that they will be able to take stock of that damage? Do you think the CDC is able to adapt? Do you think the CDC is able to align its priorities? Do you think it's able to do that? Do you think the CDC is able to align its priorities to the wishes and aspirations of Liberian people? The word calibrate also means to demarcate. Do you think the CDC is able to demarcate, to separate? The word demarcate means to separate. Is the CDC able to separate people who are serious about working in the government? You think the CDC is able to do that? Can George Weah separate himself from Samuel Twe and Nathaniel McGill? Folks, the word recalibrate will also mean to read. Can the CDC go by and read its own policies, read its own actions, read its own failures, evaluate them, and make a determination? Because the word calibrate could also mean looking at things to also make a determination. Now, the word calibrate could also mean to check out. Can the CDC go to where and check out all the mistakes that they have made? Folks, the word calibrate could also mean to look over. Can the CDC go over all of its mistakes, its false promises and lies, and be able to make adjustment? Can the CDC do that? Well, the word calibrate could also mean to tailor. To tailor mean is to put things in order, in line, the way you will want them or the way they should be. To do it so that it can meet someone's approval. Also, it can meet certain standards that are acceptable. To tailor. Is the CDC able to rank its numerous problems? Is the CDC able to peg? PEG is another word. The word calibrate, some of you have heard the word, putting square pegs in round holes. Can the CDC look at all the problems it has? Can the CDC look among itself and see those people who are not performing, who are corrupt, and take them out? But what we see here is that the CDC is putting square pegs in round holes. The CDC must be able to peg, look for the right people, and let the right people be put to the right places so that you can be able to deliver. So let me come to this too. So first of all, let's also look at the opposite of calibrate. Is the CDC able to calibrate before even talking about recalibrate? So the word calibrate, what the opposite could mean what? Disorganized. The CDC right now is disorganized. The CDC is divided. All right. Opposite of the word calibrate could mean what? Divide. All right. The CDC is divided. The CDC is disorganized. It could also mean neglect. That is the opposite of what? Calibrate. The CDC has neglected its original plan. It is not even going along with its proper plan. The CDC wanted to bring war control. The CDC wanted to audit Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. The CDC wanted to fight corruption. The CDC wanted to employ qualified people. Is the CDC doing that? No, the CDC had neglected those values, those promises, those things that they felt or it had planned it will be able to do. Let me give you something here that you will also like. There are many people who are disappointed about the way the CDC is conducting itself. So here we are. Dr. Craig Moses Namwe is a prominent Liberian and educator who has touched many lives throughout his career as an educator. Dr. Craig Moses Namwe, like many Liberians, felt at some point that President Joshua and the CDC needed to be given a chance because he, like many people, have believed that for us to have had Joshua as a president was not an accident because circumstances got us this far. He was retrospecting on the history of Liberia, the marginalization and discrimination. The us was said, damn, how other people were not good and not important. And he explained and argued that if society looked down or abandoned a vulnerable population, some way, somehow, someday, one of them will come to the limelight and you will have a product of that system. And so he had made the argument that Joshua needed to be given a chance. To the extent that he even wrote a book to validate or to give some relevance that Joshua being president was not an accident. It was because of circumstances historically that happened in our country. And so we needed to give Joshua and the CDC a chance. He wrote a book about this. So folks, but 3 years later, Dr. Ken Moses Namwe, like most Liberians, wrote a Facebook post that is on his Facebook page that I will encourage many of you to go and read. I just got a piece from there that I want to share with you. For this very Joshua to be leading an administration often displaying gross insensitivities in health, in education, in national security, and in the building and sustaining of impactful infrastructures, I am flawed. I repeat, I am flawed. I am flawed. F-L-O-O-R-E-D. Now, let me tell you what that word means. The word flawed, when you know flow, when you are on the floor, the bare floor and all that, that is the word flow. Dr. K. Mose Nambo is saying he is floored, meaning that he's been knocked to the ground. If you define that word, it will tell you that for someone to be knocked on the ground, almost like punch in the face, that is how he's feeling. He's feeling that he's been let down. And not only being let down, and that he's on the ground and he's been punched in the face. That is where this president, this government is doing to him and many other Liberians who felt that they needed to be given the opportunity and the chance to do what they can. And not only that, he said, I am really devastated, to say the least. I know there will be those toting the paying of exam fees for students, providing free college education, etc. In the case of free college education pronouncement, largely unmatched by delivery, is simply the mockery of a critical situation or condition. Dr. K. Mose Nambe will go and say that. I brought this because there are prominent Liberians, and I don't disagree with them. Well, it's democracy, right? If we want to practice democracy, if democracy gave us the result, we have to accept it and work with it. And so that was scared most of them were saying, okay, they're giving you a chance. We are practicing democracy. It is not always in your favor. Sometimes it goes the other way. And so it went that time in 2017. And hoping that these guys will come to power and do better. But today, 3 years later, he's telling you he's disappointed, he's devastated. He's been knocked to the ground and he's been punched in the face over and over by the behavior and the dealings of this government. That the government is insensitive to the plights of the people that brought it to power. Let me show you something else again. There's a post from Sieh Doyen. He's a sedition. He is the head of the FDA, Forestry Development Authority. He's an executive in the CDC. He wrote, "My president, why has it taken you so long? You are descendant of the legendary Joao Nimle, the greatest Liberian fighter ever." Folks, let me tell you, the man that Sieh Doyen is talking about is one of Liberia's known hero, the warrior Joao Nimle. He's from Sastan. It's the same time that I am from. Joshua is also from Sastan. My understanding is that the gentleman who wrote this thing, he's also from Sastan. He is telling Joshua, what has taken you so long? You are a descendant of the legendary Joao Nimle. Joshua is not a descendant. He's not a true descendant of Joao. He's a coward. I mean, how many persons have to die? How many persons have to protest? How hard process have to go before the president can honor his own words that his government will be like a football team. Anybody who not performing will be substituted. How long? 3 years later, a government that was just, a party that was just winning almost every election in Monserrato County is almost losing every election in Monserrato County. Listen to my English. Almost losing every major election in Monserrato County. And yet he will sit down, release his sons, then zombie, and he thinks all is well in the midst of corruption, and he will not act. Folks, it is very, very serious. This government is in trouble. So for those who are talking about whether or not the government can recalibrate, think again. Where is the Akaros grade? The government has created so much mess. The mess we have on our hands is so severe that even Akara Gray is quiet. We can't hear from him anymore. All right? Akara Gray, the guy with the famous saying, "We are cleaning the mess, Mr. Cleaning the Mess." Let me read something for you from your Minister of State and Presidential Affairs. There's a report here, and Nathaniel Magay speaking. According to the paper, Liberia's Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, Nathaniel Mange, has predicted the intense shortage of the Liberian banknotes on local market if the 54th National Legislature reneges upon authorizing the Central Bank of Liberia to print additional new banknotes upon their return for the fourth section of that August body in January 2021. So basically what Nathaniel Mange is saying, that I'm reading from the newspaper, is that Nathaniel Mange is saying that there will be an intense, mark that word, intense. When something is intense, it's serious. It's frightening. Nathaniel Mange is the guy who runs the government. He's the Minister of Presidential Affairs. He is a de facto president. President Weah does not go to work, he goes to work. This is the guy that is telling you that there will be an intense shortage of Liberian dollars should the national legislature not authorize the printing of another banknote. Folks, hello, this government that could not manage 16 billion that was printed by the previous government and turned over to it could not manage it. This is the government that going to manage another billions. This government decided that they are going to print $4 billion. It printed that money and brought it in July of 2020. They released pretty much all that money into the financial market or in the market. Still, there is shortage of Liberian dollars. Folks, the last time I checked, the government of Liberia controls the central bank. The central bank has the ability or the authority to regulate the commercial bank. Why are they not regulating the commercial banks? It's the central bank responsibility to ensure that commercial banks meet the reserve requirement. That means they should have excess money set aside to prevent a shortage of cash flow into the market. The central bank should be able to enforce that the commercial banks have reserve, and that reserve should be at the very central bank, so that when they are running out of money, they can go there and get that money in order for the citizens, depositors, to not experience what they are experiencing today. Do you think the central bank has been able to live up to its authority here, ensuring that these commercial banks have reserved so that in case of any shortage, they will be able to tap into it and be able to serve depositors and give them their money? No, the central bank is not doing that. Another responsibility of the central bank is to ensure that the commercial bank do not engage in risky borrowing. But what we notice, the commercial banks have been borrowing money to these government officials. Many of you are aware, less than 1 month into the CDC government administration, I think about 2 or 3 months, Nathaniel Mange said he borrowed around $250,000, I think, from LBDI Bank to build a house. What Mange has paid back, I'm just saying that to give you an example, that officials of government, including legislators, sometimes some young people talk about the legislator can borrow from the banks and they have to pay back. Folks, these government officials go to the banks and borrow, and they have been having a hard time paying. So these banks have been making loans or giving out loans that are very risky, giving it to people who are not in the position to pay, or because of their statuses in government will not want to pay. It has the central bank being able to regulate that aspect. How they know? The central bank has the authority to shut any commercial bank down if the commercial bank is not solvent. In other words, if the commercial bank does not have sufficient money in it, the central bank should be able to shut that bank down, because the essence of a bank is an institution for the what? The free flow of cash. You have an account, you save your money at the bank, you want your money, you go to the bank. In fact, it is demanded by the banks to guarantee satisfactory customer service to their depositors, that when they want their money, they get their money. In fact, that's the people's money anyway. So how the hell these banks don't have money? And when people show up to these banks for their own money, the banks will tell them, oh, we don't have money, sit them down, or we'll only give you $2,000. The person money that they put in the bank. The reason that is happening because those banks are not solvent. They don't have sufficient cash. It is the responsibility of the central bank in situations like that to go and shut that bank down because you are creating problem for citizens. They're not accessing cash, and in as much as they don't have money, that will translate into hardship. The person can't get money to buy food. The person can't get their money to send their children to school. Do you have a country? And even the money issue that we're talking about is a national security problem. Liberia is the only country that uses the Liberian dollar. The Liberian dollar is not being used in Guinea. It's not being used in Sierra Leone. It's not being used in Africa. It's not used in America. It's not being used anywhere. All the billions and billions that have been printed, and people cannot find Liberian dollars. One of the reasons why we are having the problem is the issue of what? Trust, confidence. People don't trust the banks anymore because every time people show up, they don't get their money. So business people and other people are keeping their money at home because the central bank has failed to regulate the financial bank, the commercial banks. And so we have the issue on our hand. And the solution that the Minister of State and Presidential Affairs is proposing on behalf of the government is for them to go and bribe legislators again for them to print another billions. What's about the billions that we have? Oh, everything is completely mutilated now? Is that the argument, folks? We already have too much trouble on our hands with money. The idea that printing money again will solve this problem to be managed by the very folks who have not been able to manage the 16B, who tried to manage the $4 billion they printed later, and today the Liberian people can't access their own money as though the money has been taken to Sierra Leone or any other place. It's just laughable. Fellow Liberians, and now here is CDC telling you they will recalibrate. You will recalibrate? You have not been able to recalibrate with Mamba Mulu. When he started talking about those things about President Weah, how the president, whenever he went out and bring in money, he would take the money to a house for a personal use. Mamba Mulu said that you have not been able to recalibrate. Your own chairman indicted your president. You have not been able to recalibrate. Seditionists are resigning. People are resigning from your government. That has not been enough for you to recalibrate. DeLong flogged you in 2019 in Monserrado County, your stronghold. You failed to recalibrate. DeLong came back and destroyed you this time around with 80,000 votes, as though the 30,000 votes he beat you with that time was not enough. He beat you with even almost triple of that amount. Is this the time you think you're going to recalibrate with all the bruises that you're sustaining to the point that seditionists are bleeding politically from their noses? And you think you're going to recalibrate? My position here is that their recalibration is dead upon arrival. And one of the damages the CDC government has been able to do, the CDC has damaged the image of the country. 16 billion, corruption cases, the death of the auditors, president dancing zombie, protests because people have not been taking pay, to the extent that U.S. embassy have to issue warning that if you are going to that country, make sure you carry money. What kind of country that people can't get their own money? Your own country, you're managing it. This is your country currency. You are the only country that uses their money for crisis in the country too. And you can't find that money in that country. And then you want to print more. The question is, how did you manage the first ones? For which you want to print another. Amen. So their recalibration thing they're talking about, in my opinion, is dead upon arrival. And because the country image has been damaged, And because the country is not being taken serious because of the way our leaders have conducted themselves, all the international community does is just give maybe something like 40 million, 25 million here and there, and our brothers and sisters in the CDC will celebrate that. You celebrating $40 million? They celebrated the $214 million that was given by the US government to USAID for USAID work in Liberia. It's not that they are giving the money to say Liberian government and here your money, use it as you please. No, it was never like that. It was money set aside for USAID to carry on a works in Liberia. But our brothers and sisters in the CDC were celebrating. They said amen that the government was doing well. Where is the government that is doing well? The one that is killing auditors? The one that can manage a financial industry to the extent that Liberians can get their own money? The one that has credited from banks? Our government credited about $65 million from the commercial banks. There's no record whether or not they have paid back. Our government has not been able to pay back. And this is the government our friends will tell us is doing well. Hello, for your good news here, Sierra Leone, our next door neighbor, was given 400 million by the very IMF as grant. Grant meaning free money. 400 million. That is almost our budget. Our budget is around 500 million. IMF gave Sierra Leone 400 million grant. Free money. They're not going to pay back. Nothing attached to it that you have to do this before you get it. No. It's based on the government performance. I'm not saying all is bread and butter, but at least they have been able to show some level of seriousness to the extent that the IMF was able to give Sierra Leone $400 million grant, free money. I didn't see Sierra Leonean people dancing in the street or on Facebook. But our friends and brothers in the CDC, they are dancing and posting on Facebook and celebrating and congratulating President Joshua for $50 million $40 million extended credit facility to Liberia just to help with balance of payment. And the reason why the people felt sorry for us, because our very central bank cannot even manage our own money. They depleted our reserve. They can't even pay commercial banks $65 million they owe them. And because they don't want the country to fail, the people say, okay, let's just get a $40 million. Our friends are dancing. Amen. What kind of business is this? Folks in cyberspace, I have said enough. And I'm sorry that I have to be this long because I'm tired of hearing this thing. Let's recalibrate. Let's recalibrate. There is nothing yet to recalibrate about because the CDC does not have it in its spine. The leaders, they have failed us. They are tired. They are fighting among themselves. They can't unite. The president of the Republic, George Weah, is not able to fire Samuel 12. So if CDC want to show any seriousness that it want to actually recalibrate, the best they can do is for President Weah to dissolve the entire government and go back to the drawing board and bring in professionals. Whether or not that will save the government, but it will be better than deciding to stay with Samuel 12, Nathaniel Magee, and the lots of the unfit in the government. And this thing that these people are doing, government is serious business. People hurting you. People are hurting you. And these guys are playing games. They're playing checkup with people's lives here in this country. You can't amend Magee to be the chief administrator of your country. That intellectual weakling. And that's the man you're counting on. Your country is doomed, folks. This is no hate for the brother. From assistant minister at internal affairs to de facto president of the Republic of Liberia. What is the experience? I know from some world leaders, they look at the profile, the leaders in our government, and they say, but who is this guy? Who is this guy? No wonder why they're not getting any money. We don't have no serious people in our government. Folks, if you want to call, the phone lines are open. I've talked more than I should have talked. I'm just tired of the recalibration. Let's recalibrate. There is nothing to recalibrate about. And the reason there's nothing to recalibrate about, because the leaders who should do the recalibration, they don't even know the importance of it. They don't have the ability to look on the outside. They think government is a personal business. Oh, we want our election, so we have to do it. Fine. Find the right people among your ranks and file and bring them and do the job. They won't even do it. And some of you asking them to recalibrate and bring people from outside. President Weah, his personal nature, he's not a team player. He operates on friendship. Oh, that's my friend, that's how he operates. He's a guy who does not know how to make new friends. That man been with Archibald Bernard for the longest, to the point that his party, imagine Joshua building all those mansions and condominiums around, but they are still renting for Archibald Bernard. They're still renting, I think they're renting the mainland. The state CDC is still swatting on the mainland. But Joshua was able to buy land upon land and build houses upon houses. But the party he claims to love, that brought him to power, they are still renting. They are still on Archibald Bernard land. Why? Because that's his friend. Jesus Christ. Well, I can't say more than I have said, folks. It is about time for you to call. Let me see. Get your calls coming here, or else I will shut the broadcast down. I see no call yet. So send no call. Let me read some comments here quickly. Let me read some comments here, and if I don't get a call, I'm out of here. I have said it all. Francis Bill, great topic. We will see that move from CDC as hypothetical and power greed. I think CDC-led government, BEED, to do away, maybe meant to say better do away with campaign move and get away. I agree with you. They need to get away from that campaign move. Fokpa Kata, no, they can't come nowadays. Tevinanko, and more hate son to come. Misguided, leaderless nation, zombie republic. That's true. It's a zombie republic because our leader continue to dance zombie. Musu Ska writes, LD 16 billion is not an old story. You cannot recalibrate without dealing with the issues that got us here. The problems will not go away until questions are answered, period. And I like that. I see my good brother, Sieh Goya, is following here. Sieh, do you think that these people can recalibrate? They don't have any DNA to recalibrate. Saki Y, Mr. Host, Ansony Sieh, by your presentation being made right here, you have proven to be deeply knowledgeable on the contemporary Liberian political historical events. The guy is blowing my trumpet, my people. Anyway, my brother, thank you. Sometimes we all need a little bit of juice. Moses Seple, right? Never allow your political group to die a political death in Liberia. When that happens, there is no there's no resurrection. He writes, ask about NDPL, TWP, and the MPP. And my brother, you couldn't be historically on point. Sam Waller writes, answering, what would you like to see the current administration do to right their ship? Well, my brother, they need a paradigm shift that will see the likes of Mange, Koji, and Samuel Tuer taking the exit door and bringing in Liberian professionals. But President Weah does not have the stomach to do that. Somebody is telling us that he is the descendant of the great warrior Juad Nimlan. I am a descendant of Juad Nimlan. If this government were my government, those guys are out. You playing with people's lives here, you want to play friendship? You gotta be serious. Solomon Prince, right? CDC has failed. When Mange is stated, I think when Mange stated that money LD must be printed to save the economy, which is not his job. Why is the governor of the bank not speaking? Why Mange? Well, my brother, that is how they operate. Sam Wallorai, hope Dr. Nambe was just as flawed by the previous administration that set the stage for what the country is in today. Or Jake's Vogarite, my dear, thanks for your understanding and the courage to voice the truth as legalized corruption, gross disregard for rule of law, and total lack of leadership. The election and entrusting of that's a long one. Too long, my friend, but thanks for your participation. This one is from Alberto Ansony. I will save this video for future reference. This is a verbal editorial on the WIA administration, 2027 to present in a nutshell. Thank you. I came prepared today to get this done. I've had enough. Good talk, Ansony. We are frustrated, and we are rightfully frustrated. We are rightfully frustrated. Iratus Daniel, right? You had say, I think you meant to say you have said it all, my brother. Iratus Daniel, you have said it all, my brother. Mr. Sam Wallow again writes, I agree with an overhaul of the administration. Fire everyone and start over, my brother. We have an agreement. This one is from Samuel Galemon. The entire government is made of kids without visions. I agree with you. It's a visionless government. Iratus Daniel, you have said all, my brother. Folks, I want to thank you so very much for your comments and always following our broadcast here at Focus on Liberia. I brought you political analysis historically also on the CDC government behavior and performance from their president to government officials. These people have been governing the country acting as though it's used for them. That is the mentality they came with. You're looking at your own brothers and sisters, you call them enemy of states. We are in a democracy for Christ's sake. The job of the opposition is not to bake bread for you. They are there to keep you on your toes. You sign up for their job for Christ's sake. Put on your pants and go to work. Some of them not even go to work. They will not even carry simple thing, the clock-in machine that will make the government to save money. And twice going around using big words like harmonization. There's no data for harmonization. Talking about D-hole, cover hole. Talking about borrowing initiative. We're using unconventional means. All of these things have failed, and you came up with another one to tell us, benevolent dictator. This is how failure smells. When you see people running away from the government, everybody calling for recalibration, a government that is on a way out. Folks, thank you for following, and thank you for following. Those who follow us also on YouTube, we noticed that many of you have not been getting the notification. I think YouTube is having some problem there. So I will encourage you to go back to our YouTube channel and subscribe again so that you can get a notification. That is why that is happening. On that note, folks in cyberspace, thank you. Enjoy the song that says, we are all Liberians. Whether or not you are as disappointed and angry and frustrated as I am, because we have had enough, we should not be getting a bad deal again. We have so many bad deals. That is why this government was elected, to give the people a good deal. Instead, they are giving our people yet another bad deal, feeding them with lies and frustrating our people. This is not the hope for change the people voted for. And so, folks, enjoy the song that says we are all Liberians. Bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.